little green girl, and we're going to show you a little bit about seed demonstrations, how to sow them, and it's so easy that even a 10-year-old can do it. All right, so there's a couple of important things that you probably want to know about seed sowing, and it kind of precedes that. It's like, why should I sow seeds? Can you hear? If you can't hear me, just raise your hand, okay? Why do we want to sow seeds? Anyone know? Okay. Well, the reason why we should sow seeds is that you get a lot of unusual varieties, okay? And it's cheaper, believe it or not, because when you buy a packet of seeds, it might be $3 to $4 for tomato seeds, but when you buy a tomato plant, that's like $3 to $4 right there. So if you do the math, you get a lot of tomato seeds just for one packet, okay? That's a really important thing. And again, because of the fact you get a lot of varieties of unusual kinds. Okay. There are two different basic types of seeds. One is called the heirloom seed, and that is open pollinated by nature, bees, and wind. And these produce seeds that are identical to the parent seed, so you'll always get a fairly true plant. And the other thing is that what's really unique about it, it's been passed down for generations, so it's really a pure seed, and you're getting a pure plant. The other one is called a hybrid, and a hybrid has two different kinds of offsprings. It has two different plant varieties of the same species, and what you're doing is kind of breeding the plant so that you get the best of it, okay? So let's say, for instance, you've got a really good flavor for one tomato, but you also want the color of another, so you might be breeding those, and you'll get different kinds of tomato, and you get the best traits of it. So those are two different kinds. There's also three different kinds of seeds. One is the natural seeds that you get in the packets, okay? Those are the pure ones. And then we also have tape seeds, okay? And our friend Monica made these for us. And what these are carrot seeds. And she's taken a little paste or whatever, and she's put them actually on the newspaper. Now, why do we want to do this? The reason we want to do this is that for spacing, okay? So for instance, when you're putting your seed tape down, you're laying it on there so that the seeds will come up and they'll be spaced equally, which is really nice, because to me, carrot seeds and other kinds of seeds are really, really tiny. So if you sprinkle them all over, you're going to get tons and tons of little seedlings. What's nice about this is that you save your time and energy, and that you're actually sprouting those seeds where you want them, okay? The other kind of seeds are pelleted seeds. So I'm going to pass these around here. Take a look at those. These are pelleted seeds. What's nice about these, and these happen to be lettuce seeds, okay, is that they've got a little bit of a coating on them, which don't hurt them or anything. And what they do is that they allow you to be able to see where you planted them. And these are just different colors. I'm going to pass these around. Now, when it comes to seeds, there's actually a couple of things that you might have to do to some of the seeds. One of them is scarification, okay? And that's when you take a seed that has a really, really heavy coating, and what you need to do is scratch it. Make sense? Scar. So what you do is you take the seed and you scratch the back of it with a nail file, or nick it or whatever. And what that does is when you immerse it into water, what happens is that it brings it out of its dormancy, and it will start to germinate. The other kind of special treatment is called stratification. And stratification kind of emulates when you're outside in the winter. And what happens is that when you put the seed in some soil and you wet it and you stick it in the refrigerator. And it emulates that whole thing of winter. So you leave it in there for in the refrigerator for, however long the packet says that you do it. And then you take it out and eventually you plant it. Okay? So it pre-treats it. So when it comes down to seeds, how do you read a seed packet? Now, it's really interesting because as I was talking to some of my teammates, when you look at seed packets, they're all really different, right? And they have all this different information on there. And the hardest part is that it doesn't have all the information in the same place, and it's defined differently. So there's some basic things that you really need to learn about seed packets, okay? And I think if you've got over there, there's some handouts over there. And this is a pretty comprehensive document about seeds. Okay, I'll go over those a little bit. Now, the first thing about a seed packet, they're sold by weight or by count, okay? Now, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like you can't really compare them because some seeds are really heavy, so you might get less, or some seeds you get a lot of. Let's say for carrots or lettuce seeds, you get a lot of them, so you get a lot more seeds. So it's kind of hard to tell if you have a good value, but more importantly is you want to get seeds that have really good quality, okay? So that's really important. Light requirements. They'll always tell you what kind of light requirements there are. Some seeds grow better in shade, some seeds go better in the sun. For instance, full sun, you need at least 6 hours. And for partial sun, you'll need about 4 hours of direct light. Okay? Then you might have to, the other thing to think about is when to sow. Okay? If you don't know already, we live in Zone 5A. And that's really important because that tells us when we are able to grow some of these plants. So for instance, we have a fairly short growing season, right? Tomatoes, we can't just put them out right away because they have to be, you need a lead time for it to be able to start, and then you can actually plant them. So that's why some of us are going to be doing seed sowing early, so we get a jump on those tomato plants and then we can plant them, right? Or you're going to end up probably going to Home Depot or wherever you're going to buy tomato plants and then plant those seedlings directly. So you're saving that time. The other one to think about is plant depth. And in general, what you need to do is plant the seed 2 to 3 times the size of the seed and cover it with potting soil. And then the small seeds, what you can do is just sprinkle it on top and then make sure you tamp it down. And what you want to do with your soil, you'll want to use sterilized soil, either potting soil, or you can use pellets, or you can use coy. And I'm going to show you what these are here. This is basically potting soil that's a little bit wet down. This is coy, which basically is coconut fiber. And what you do is mix this with some sort of fertilizer. And then there's pellets, which are these. These are, you can just buy these, and what they do is they're actually flat, and then when you soak them in hot water, they puff up like this. Very easy. So there's different ways of starting your seeds. Whatever you choose to do is fine as long as they start to grow, right? Okay, days to maturity. That tells you when actually the plant is mature or has flowered. Okay, so that kind of gives you a rough idea of how long it's going to take. So for instance, lettuce seeds or things that start early, which are called cold crops, radishes, lettuces, spinach, things like that, they're going to have start earlier, and so you can start those early in the spring, and then we'll have a certain time when they'll be done. Maturity level, sometimes earlier crops will be shorter, and sometimes longer crops, like tomatoes and things like that, will take longer. So you're going to need to kind of plan accordingly when you want to plant those. That leads to time. If you're wanting to plant tomato plants, you want to start planting them like next month, okay? You got to think backwards, because the original date in Chicago for frost-free is technically May 15th, but you really want to think about it the end of May, just to be safe. Or if you have any way of covering up your plants, if it happens to be a cold dip or something like that, you'll definitely want to make sure you take care of those plants.